Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is Instructor Joy. Let me first play a tune for you. This was beginning of the Mozart Concerto number 5 in Allegro aperto part. So I thought I'm gonna talk about this particular piece because I want us to talk about how one makes Mozart, those beautiful Mozart tone. And also, the Mozart Concerto is one of those concertos that we must master at some point, because whether you are amateur or professional players, it's always asked to play in different kinds of auditions and competitions, whether it's for ensemble, orchestra, or solo repertoire. It's one of the most important one, if not the most important repertoire for violin players. So this is crucially important piece for all of us to master and also understand how to play Mozart concertos properly, or anything Mozart tunes properly. But before I go into that, I would like to thank you all for your continued support. I encourage you all to check out my Patreon page, which is in the description below. And thank you very much for your kind support, booking lessons with me, and sending me donations here and also at Patreon. I truly appreciate. So when it comes to Mozart tone, we have to understand there's a particular Mozart kind of sound. So this is something Germans say it's an airy tone, so it's rather light, ringing but light. It's very different than when you play Brahms or Tchaikovsky, which is, yeah. So now let's understand what particular bow technique makes Mozart sound versus romantic sound. So big difference between Mozart tone and romantic tone, such as Tchaikovsky and Brahms, like that, has to do with two things: bow speed, bow weight. Actually, three things. I lied. Sorry, three things: bow speed, bow weight, and type of vibrato. Those three things are very important facts when it comes to producing certain type of sound. So let's talk about bow speed. Now, there are two ways of playing loud tone: by putting more weight, or by speeding up the bow speed. Sorry. So they're both, you can play louder tone. When it comes to Mozart, it's often done that we make louder sound by faster bow speed while keeping the bow light. That's considered for most of us as a Mozart tone or Mozart sound. Whereas in romantic era, such as a Tchaikovsky, Brahms, it's done a little heavier bow, and then you can even bring closer to the bridge. That would be typical romantic tone. Yeah. So again, Mozart tone, light bow. So we keep a little bow away from the bridge to keep bow light, but faster bow speed. Sorry. Whereas romantic forte would be a little closer to the bridge and heavier bow, so putting weight a little more on the bow to make louder tone. That's one way of doing it. Now, so we talked about bow speed and bow weight. Now let's talk about vibrato. Mozart tone typically works with narrow and then fast vibrato. So when at the beginning, I made it very fast and narrow vibrato. What happens if I do wide vibrato and fast? It's totally out of character. You don't have to be a violinist to tell whether it's right or not. It just sounds wrong, because that's just not what Mozart's supposed to sound like. But if you play Brahms or Tchaikovsky, that would work well. That kind of tune works well. But for Mozart, you keep a vibrato very narrow and fast. doesn't matter what type of vibrato you're using, whether it's arm, wrist, or finger. If you keep it nice, fast, and narrow, that's gonna create a very nice Mozart tone. So those are three things: bow speed, bow weight, and type of vibrato. So that's already a big part of Mozart tone. On top of that, there's a typical Mozart bow stroke, which is two slurred, two separated with a little spiccato. Here we have two slurred and then two separate. Then, so a lot of students try to make spiccato very manually, but make sure the spiccato should happen naturally, which means without us trying to bounce too actively. Make sure you place the bow in the right spot where it bounces on its own. There are other videos that I made about spiccato and other bouncing bow strokes, so I encourage you to check it out. But here, in Mozart pieces, it's even more important to make the bow light by raising wrist even higher. So when you play such typical bow stroke, your flexible wrist and flexible fingers play important role. So normally in romantic era piece, you can keep the wrist a little low to make sticky and then heavy sound. This would be fine in romantic pieces such as Tchaikovsky, Brahms, things like that. But they would be too heavy for Mozart. So for the Mozart stroke or Mozart tone, you would have to raise your wrist a bit higher to make the bow a bit lighter. So basically taking the weight off the bow, and then keep the wrist and the finger joint very flexible so that the bow can keep it light and then bounce when necessary. Yeah? Like that. Yeah? That way when you play, so it keeps light and then, yeah, like that. So there's so many things that one can study with this particular piece. There's also so many interpretations one could do, but one thing is for sure, we have to understand what kind of tone we're talking about when it comes to Mozart, because that's one of the #1 most important one. Yeah? I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching and happy Mozart playing. Bye-bye.